evening a truly remarkable collection of trained Apterous insects. Indeed, the only species of the articulata ever taught to perform.
I think Arnold's probably one of the most misunderstood people in show business I know today.
He's always got a lot of ideas, you know, and I like that. I like sort of being around people. I've got ideas, you know. His ideas are really like, well, sometimes a bit stupid, really.
Who would believe that Flea Circus could become famous? I've got to say, I did.
He's ambitious. Well, he's on his way up, you know.
He's a difficult man. But the reason I keep him on is because I believe in him.
Charismatic, yes.
You know, he's going to get what he wants in the end.
Eclectic.
Borderline obsessive.
I've said Dynamo before, haven't I? I'll say it again.
I think Arnold will be one of those that does a Tommy Cooper, you know. It could happen. The sinews in his neck standing out and pop, one day off they go.
He knows he's going to be the top.
I mean, one thing I think that a lot of people don't know is that he had a cyanotic birth. And I think that says a lot, really. I mean, go figure, yeah?
There was a time when flea circuses were a popular entertainment throughout Europe, and flea trainers were renowned international celebrities. And the most famous of all was the great Leo Bertolotto, whose company of industrious fleas traded from 238 Regent Street. His remarkable fleas would perform all manner of feats, reenacting famous battles, towing chariots and dancing the waltz. Under the patronage of Princess Augusta of Prussia, Bertolotto trained fleas by royal command. Indeed, when Bertolotto conducted his 12-piece flea orchestra for the princess, she is said to have actually been able to hear the sound emitting from the 1-inch square concert hall. But tragically, there the story was almost scratched, for improvements in living standards and personal hygiene soon resulted in a scarcity of human fleas, and their trainers fell on hard times. Perhaps also the dedication required to train fleas is simply too much for some men. Consider, for example, the case of Len Laughing Boy Ratner, who is said to have been driven quite insane trying to teach a particularly stubborn parasite to ride a tricycle, until one day, in a fit of despondency, he threw himself from the end of Southend Pier.
When he first introduced the flea thing to us, we really didn't see it. We were kind of, fleas? If I'd known then just where it was going to lead, well, I definitely wouldn't have wanted to be involved, you know. Every day I think, if only I could just go back and say to him, don't do it. Don't take us through it. You know, it's hindsight, isn't it? He was absolutely obsessed with it from the word go. He was always in control. He always has been a control freak. That's his thing.
I mean, the main thing is that the show it's very much my show. Obviously, I'm not the only performer, but as the Flea Circus trainer, really, everything revolves around me, and the other people in the show are really just extras.
He would just be 100% absorbed in his fixation with the history of fleas, how fleas may, everything. Oh, you know, like to the point where I thought that maybe he might be mentally unbalanced.
I think he's a brave man. Feeding them himself, from himself, is something I couldn't do. I've never seen it being done, but I've seen the marks. It doesn't look very nice to me.
So all he wanted to talk about, so all we were allowed to talk about was the Flea Circus and how best we could help him make that work. It was his circus. We were going to provide the atmosphere, and Arnold was going to be the greatest flea trainer the world has ever seen.
We now present Arnold Frenzy and his strangely compelling Flea Circus.
I would just like to ask you to please, in the interest of safety, to refrain from any sudden coughing, any sharp intakes of breath, and absolutely no flash photography. Thank you. Warm round of applause, piece 4. The Acapulco Swallows!
And here they come, ladies and gentlemen. This is Tortilla and Burrito, sporting splendid rhinestone swimming costumes as they make their way across the chalk, getting a little bit of chalk on the front feeders, the rear feeders, and of course the auxiliary pouch as they ascend the little tiny rope ladder. Look at those little tiny rubber bathing hats, as well as Burrito makes her way out onto the end of the diving board, going to be performing a simple plunge dive, and here she goes, beautiful poise. She's up and lands, ladies and gentlemen. Oh my goodness, what a fantastic time, what a performer. Thank you very much, yes indeed. Next up, ladies and gentlemen, is Tortilla, going to be performing a dive with a difficulty 6.8, twisting pike somersault, backflips, and lands, ladies and gentlemen.
When we first started doing the festivals, it was bloody hard. Like, knee-deep in mud and stuff, trying to get the marquee together and trying to get all the gear set up and trying to practice without electrocuting ourselves. We'd all sort of bought into this dream of Arnold's. And we really thought, yeah, Arnold's right.
So funny. It's ridiculous.
He must be right, this is going to be the next big thing.
The first time I met Arnold, I was immediately struck with this sort of enigmatic, charismatic person. He just bowled me over, won me over from the outset. I'd heard of them. I thought, I'd like to do that. I told him so. I said, I want to be in your band. And I haven't really looked back since. 40 years old, this is what everything's been leading up to. It seemed like a break, it seemed like a move up to me. That's the power of the man, you know. A lot of people believe in him and follow him.
Arnold's energy that he seemed to be able to just instill in people just fired everybody up. I was sure that we were going places. We were going to be a name that everybody knew.
Ladies and gentlemen, your rapture, a loud, raucous, Vesuvial welcome as we introduce a magnificent feat of entertainment, a live Flea Circus.
We were taking the Flea Circus to all sorts of sort of like clubs, from like upstairs in pubs to small theatres. It was going well, you know, but it was hard work on the road. Especially with Arnold being so totally obsessed with getting stuff right. Everything had to be just so. He pissed a lot of people off. We all got pissed off with him. But we kind of stuck with it.
Now we're moving more into the kind of West End kind of shows. You know, maybe we need a contract that specifically, you know, says we need a mirror with the lights around it. We need a contract, yeah, exactly. Any kind of contract.
And there wasn't anybody to do makeup or anything?
No.
This evening we were actually told we were going to be on the main stage downstairs, but once again we find we've been shoved into some little corner.
Did you see the girl in rubber out there? Did you see the
At that point, I think he was totally convinced that he was on his way to the top.
They didn't make up my style
for me, you know? She had ice here. She was kind of...
He wasn't going to carry any passengers, and he certainly wasn't going to have anyone upstage him. No way.
See, that's another thing with the Flea Circus. I've always been good on the ideas, you see, on what to do and such like.
Her idea was that it should be a bit more improvisational, and each member of the band should be able to express themselves. There was one night she decided to sort of do her own thing, you know. And obviously this threw Arnold a bit, because he's a man who likes to know what's going to happen.
Always people look at all crowding in, wanting to say to us what we're doing, and you do that.
He pulled the show off, you know, it was a good show. And it went down well, you know, it went down a storm. And I don't know whether that, you know, that might have irked him a little bit as well. They couldn't even go home in the same transit, you know, it was terrible. Really bad.
More than letting the Flea Circus down or Arnold down, I think maybe I may have let myself down. But, you know, I could be doing a lot worse, couldn't I, really, you know? I've got my health, I've got my looks, I'm all right, you know.
He's getting to know a lot of people now, you know, he's getting a lot of publicity, not all of it good, but he's getting a lot of publicity. He's just done a radio interview with BBC Radio Jersey, so, you know, who knows what might happen after that. I mean, it could all just take off. And then we got offered America.
By the 1800s, fleas were the entertainment of choice for the discerning theatre-goer. And of course, the Russian Tsars had their very own flea trainers who were looked upon as the wise and noble men of the court. Soon, flea culture even began to spread to the Americas, often hitching a ride with unsuspecting naval personnel. An unattended pair of bell-bottoms would provide first-class transatlantic accommodation for the tiny stowaways.
I understand this is the start of a world tour for your Flea Circus, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. We've got approximately, let's see, nearly 300 shows coming up.
Wow.
I'm totally blown away. It's everything I imagined and much more.
He made it seem exciting, and so we all went along. You know, I thought, yeah, this is it, this is the big time. We were all keyed up, you know, we were all thinking, wow, he's got it all together. He seemed to have made all his plans, he knew what was going to happen, this is going to happen. There's going to be TV and there's going to be radio. I'm not quite sure how we're going to do the radio because it's quite a visual act.
Live from the United Kingdom.
I'm sorry to come up with something.
Arnold Frenzy.
And there they are, they're under starter's orders in the starting gate, and they're just itching to go. And Dubious Flea's waving his little hanky, and there we go. Flea Parts dropped her handkerchief. That's the signal for the start of the race, and they're away, they're away. First to show is Flea's favourite. Flea's favourite, followed by Bruce's Archadius, and then the rank outside is Jean-Paul Sarfris, and Glutimus Maximus is bringing up the rear. And Glutimus is looking shaky as they pass the Flea along Margaret. Already he's dropped out, still it's Flea's favourite. Flea's favourite from Bruce's Archadius. And just look at those little legs going like the clappers. There's some jostling going on, no doubt there'll be a fusing worry about that. Jean-Paul Sarfris is clearly having a hard time and doesn't look happy at all. It's now a two-way race between Flea's favourite and the rank outside of Bruce's Archadius as they come up to the finishing line, and in anyone's race, and it's Flea's favourite. Flea's favourite takes it by a nose from Bruce's Archadius. What a race!
The whole idea of doing America with the Flea Circus was just so exciting. But the reality, there were just so many problems. You know, he really gets to the point now where he needs some help. But you can't tell him, so I've sort of given up trying, really.
You know, to be honest, Graham's been on the beers, and Mike's been he's been on the beers, and they've got a couple of friends there, and they've been hanging out at the bar, and we've been here since like 8 o'clock. And, well, I'm not prejudging anything, but I've seen it happen before, that's all I'm saying.
Right, so what's going on?
The bottom line is I'm a professional.
Sorry?
I was saying the bottom line is I'm a professional.
That's right. He's quite ruthless, but a lot of that is fueled by the things he puts inside himself, really.
Yeah, what time's it now? 11 o'clock. Shit, we're on.
Escapology artist extraordinaire! I love the title, ladies and gentlemen! I love the title! I love the title!
He has a very stressful job. I think there's more than a touch of genius in there, but like with most geniuses, it can be very difficult to work with.
To be perfectly honest, I try and stay out of his way. I think everyone in the band has had some kind of falling out with him. It's very difficult not to, because he's so intense.
You know, I've seen him bash his head against the wall, or he jumps up and down sometimes, It's a bit sort of,
He becomes very single-minded. When the show's on, he's like another person sometimes, and I kind of steer around that if I can.
Hey!
Arnold!
Hey!
You're scaring me.
It really did fall apart after the first week or two in America, when we've realised that it wasn't going to take off, and you had this kind of slog ahead of us. That was where the general disintegration of all the relationships in the band, basically, because you're stuck together. It's very difficult to stay on an even keel with people in those situations. You don't know where you are. You're in one place, you get up next morning, you go again, you drive for their short distances, a couple of 100 miles, so you get no time to see anything. It's hard. And a lot of people completely crack up, and I've been close to it myself. 90% of what you're doing is waiting around, is sitting in a van with smelly people and stupid people, drunk people. And those people, they're not really your friends. They're not the people you've chosen. They're the people you've ended up with.
One of the problems with the show at the moment is Arnold's trying to appeal to a very arty, elitist audience, and sometimes they don't appreciate the more rock and roll side of things. By the very nature of what I do, I have to get out front and I have to play loud.
He's the best. He's just unstoppable, literally, which is part of his downfall.
I don't get a lot of time to practice. I've had sort of criticisms that my guitar playing is lacking a bit of soul sometimes, and I think that's a reflection of what's going on off stage. Personally, I'd like to develop it musically, so it becomes a much bigger musical show with, possibly a full orchestra.
The human flea is capable of leaping in a single bound to a height of 8 inches.
I think I've been creatively stifled in a lot of ways.
More thrust per square inch than the space shuttle.
There's nothing to do. I mean, they're dingy hotel rooms. They don't, you're lucky if they have a television. You read a lot, and you drink a lot. And when you're not reading and drinking, you're sleepy, or you're doing the show. 4 or 5 times a night the show, and then, of course, you drink a lot.
Ребята, вам понравилось? Вы вообще любите это дело, которое сейчас смотрите? Ну, аплодисменты!
It started off well. We were excited and looking forward to it, but towards the end it was just a shambles. Just diabolical.
Never happened before, ladies and gentlemen. Never happened before.
Fleas have also inspired romance. In the words of metaphysical poet John Donne,
"Mark but this flea, and mark in this, how little that which thou deniest me is. It sucked me first, and now sucks thee, and in this flea our two bloods mingled be."
I kind of feel sorry for anyone that gets involved with Arnold, because he's too dominating, I think.
He can rub people up the wrong way, that's the thing. And he's rubbed a few of the women up the wrong way that have worked with him. Like, really rubbed them hard,
I knew straight away when we were booked into the hotel that I had a single room and he had a double, what his intentions were. I almost felt like warning her, but I knew she'd find out soon enough.
They're nice people, a lot of them, but you tend not to see them again. I don't know what happens to them.
He did add such a sweet tenderness towards its flea and such a dedication. At some point I really thought that it could be the same with me. In New York, we had some nice and romantic time. He took me to Ellis Island and the Statue of Liberty, and he was telling me so nice stories, talking about how life could be better together. He was talking a lot about his family as well, and then eventually talking about his fleas again, It was impossible to have any kind of relationship with a man like that. He was always going like, "Do you want a flea bite?"
Turn that down now.
Not from fleas, from him
I need
maybe.
to get dressed.
He was trying to be romantic, but it wasn't.
This is fucking perverse.
I was actually pregnant. A few things had changed in my body. He used always to say that I didn't have much bobs, and actually I started to have like rounder bobs and shapes.
Very sexy Fifi!
I couldn't believe it. We only did it once, and if I even can remember it, I'm not even sure we did it. He must have got me so drunk. It was just such a shock.
When Arnold heard about the child, supposedly his child, he just totally blanked it out and got more and more obsessed with the Flea Circus, and he didn't want to even talk about anything to do with being a father, no way. Just total denial.
He eventually called me, and I had to tell him that I was pregnant. And the bastard hung up. Next thing I know is that I received that present. I thought maybe there is going to be a letter in it, maybe some money. But no, it was a plastic dog. Like a vibrating plastic dog with like plastic fleas. And the worst of all is that my baby can't stop playing with it, and it drives me mad.
What a lovely time we've all been having.
I'm not sure Arnold will sort of be able to last that long, to be honest, the way he's going. Things have got to change. I'm not just talking artistically, I think, just the exhausting schedules we've been undergoing. Something's got to break there, and I think it's possibly going to be Arnold. A lot of it depends on how he copes with extra exposure, a bit more fame. He may have to take some time off, maybe go into rehab or something like that. He's going to have to sit down and really think about what he wants.
He seemed to get just a little bit more weirder and weirder each month I met him. He started talking about his fascination with the power of fleas. I think that's when I first started thinking, whoa, steady on, boy.
He started looking at the Flea Circus as a vehicle for making all sorts of other things. He was thinking about Frenzy being a brand name.
Okay, so you work with fleas. But at the end of the day, you like to step out with confidence knowing you've left work behind.
Somewhere he found out fleas are totally repelled by the smell of horses.
Okay, it may be an acquired taste, but to the sophisticated filly, it's quite simply irresistible.
He started to look into making this perfume, you know.
It's the fragrance that says you're a well-groomed thoroughbred.
I couldn't really see it taking off, to be honest. Not in the way that Arnold thought it would.
It's a fragrance that says you're a pedigree stallion who's not afraid to unleash a little unbridled animal passion. So just imagine what this fragrance could do for you. And just imagine where you might want to wear it. Imagine smelling of horse.
The first impression I had of the show was that I knew it was something big. Okay, you know, I know it's just a small show. And fleas, you can't get much tinier than that, can you? But I'm a great believer in small is big. And I think that the Flea Circus is one of the great undiscovered shows of the 21st century. He's a workaholic. I mean, he really is a slave to his art. I've known him to sort of go days without sleep to get things right. He's not only good at what he does, but also he's probably a world authority now. He could easily do lecture tours. And of course, there's projects that he's working on. You know, there's a film that's being worked on.
Arnold's talking about a TV show, and that's like on the offing. You know, there's like had a chat with a few people, and that's all looks like it's going ahead.
I mean, it's bringing the natural world to us. I mean, look at David Attenborough. I mean, what he's done for sort of our entertainment in our homes, and that's what can happen with Arnold's show.
And that'll be brilliant. That'll be absolutely brilliant.
Buggy was just 21 days old when he stepped out onto the tarmac at a small hairstrip on Bikini Island. He was on the last leg of his US tour, and so far it had all been pants. Travelling with him were fellow musicians Itchy Valens and the Big Hopper. They thought they were real lucky to itch a ride on that plane. As the flying flea spluttered into life and gathered speed, snow began to fall. And sitting up front, Buggy began to sing.
Bikini Control Tower, what's your height and position, please? 1 millimetre, and I'm sitting at the front.
Little did any of them realise, this would be the day the music died. And the engine. Buggy's whole life flashed before him. Jeepers, what a crazy ride! They found the remains of the flying flea in a cornfield the following morning. Buggy's body appeared unscathed, like he was just sleeping. He was as pretty in death as he had been in life. In the words of Buggy himself, it's better to have loved small than never to have loved at all. A-hoo, a-hoo, a-ha-ha-hoo-hoo.
I know as the success happened, he was buying much better quality booze. So there was some money somewhere.
At the height, it was just getting ridiculous, really. We had 2 lorries. One of them, we weren't even allowed to know what was in it. It was all Arnold's personal stuff that he had to take with him. It must have been costing him a fortune. I never saw any figures, you know. At one point, Arnold insisted on taking this illuminated dance floor. I couldn't really see what relevance it had, but he seemed to think it was important and it made him happy, and a lot of these things made him happy, and making him happy became pretty much a full-time job.
Like most people in that situation, we were undervalued, underpaid too.
Sometimes I think he's economical with the truth about how much we're actually getting paid for various gigs, various tours. He's very cagey about the financial side of things. There seems to be a lot of money mismanagement. I don't know how much of that is calculated on his part or how much of it is just negligence.
He says money talks, but it just seems to say goodbye.
He had always dealt with stuff himself, and suddenly his view changed, and suddenly we had to have an agent, he had to have an agent. So that's how Chris Grant got involved. I think that's probably the worst mistake he made.
Arnold was quite an important act to me. He kept developing the circus. I mean, my first impression was it's so well contained. You know, he could take it in the back of his car. It's a little flea circus, and he has all the said fleas contained within that, and he's a mobile unit.
That kind of sparked off the idea that Arnold had to downsize the whole thing. He thought, Flea Circus, small, portable, we could do this all over the place. We're going to take this out to the people and we're going to completely blow their minds. That was the idea, and it was a great idea, really brilliant idea. But Arnold put this to the agent, you know, Chris, and Chris kind of took it a different way.
As his manager, I think I understand where to pitch him more than he does.
Yeah, Chris, I don't think you're listening to me. Look, I'm in a car park, right, with about half a dozen Morris dancers and about 150 shoppers. Morris dancers. The whole world has gone mad.
impact. I mean, Arnold is a big man with a small idea.
We're in the car park.
Sadly, to his detriment. He had ideas beyond his station.
Yeah, well, I know I wanted to do bigger venues, but I mean... Yeah, I'm not interested in reward points. Chris?
He has no sense of proportion, doesn't have any idea about the size of his impact. The impact with the audience is small. It's like, it's like a tiny punch, like being hit in the stomach by a small child. It's not a big deal. All I give him is opportunities, and that was an opportunity. You know, why not take it to the car parks? People go there.
This lunchtime, a truly remarkable collection.
Initially, I thought Chris was going to be a good thing, that it would take a bit of the pressure off Arnold. But then some of the gigs we were getting were so crap. I was kind of thinking, what is this guy doing, you know? Arnold hated doing these little street things, and that wasn't art to him. I mean, to me, it's still an audience. But to Arnold, he was lowering himself. I don't know, Canary Wharf Shopping Centre and children's parties, and to be honest, like, Arnold's not a children's parties man, you know.
Now pay attention, children. Next time Mummy or Daddy asks you to mix them a little vermouth cocktail, 1 part martini, 6 parts vodka.
He's not like happy Uncle Arnold. He's like, you will sit down and you will see this as art.
Perfect martini cocktail.
Or else.
When I begin, you will sit quietly and you will pay attention.
He like scares children. They're like, yes Arnold, yes Mr. Arnold, yes Mr. Frenzy, you know, they're like that. You know, you see their eyes, you can see like, you know, little kids, their eyes like that. Because they're too scared to look away. Yes. So the kids' party circuit wasn't the ideal thing at all. And Arnold hated it as well, you know, you could see it. You could see it was like, every time we did it, it was a chore, you know, it was terrible. And we got supermarkets and things, you know. Oh, God. It was cruel, really.
I think he thought it was a club called the Salisbury or something. And it's turned out to be Sainsbury. So he's a bit upset. Like, you know, understandably. I mean, I'm upset. I mean, I don't show it, like... Yeah, he does, yeah. Yeah. Not one really.
If you've ever lived in a house or anywhere that's had fleas, which you haven't probably, but I tell you, they're the most uncomfortable little rats you could ever sleep with.
Good afternoon, this is the colleague announcing for the grocery manager. Please go to the health and beauty page. Thank you.
It was kind of making him bitter about the whole entertainment industry because he felt like he was being sold down the river. And he was.
That gig, in my opinion, could have broken him. He was getting near a market that was completely untapped. Up until that point, he was doing an arty market. He was doing the bohemian theatre set, the dinner jazz, the snobs. To get him into Sainsbury's by the fruit and veg was getting him closer to real people. He just couldn't see that, which is why he played the gig badly.
Now, answer truthfully, have you ever kissed a man with a moustache?
At the end of that year, Arnold gave me a present, and well, look, this is what he gave me. Anton, he said, I want you to have this, he said, because he said, if you hadn't have been round at times, this is how I'd have been.
That's when he decided to just gamble everything and chuck everything at doing the Edinburgh shows.
Edinburgh was a big thing for him. We had such high hopes for it. As far as I saw him, he was a vaudevillian, end of the pier act with a curious angle. As I said, big man with a small idea. I just thought the Fringe would be perfect for Arnold.
And again, he built it up. We thought this is going to be good. Reviews and Kirsty Walk and all those kind of things.
He'd pinned a lot on it. I mean, our wages for a start.
Then I find out he's got Anton doing the publicity.
This is one of the early T-shirts. And you see on the back there, they printed it around the wrong way.
Not just some of the publicity for the whole of the Edinburgh run.
And there's the postcard, the same artwork. A postcard is a postcard. It's getting bigger. It certainly is.
And I thought, this is the big God, here we go again, you know.
Oh, the Evening Standard, yes. A whole page, Victor Lewis Smith, just on how much he likes the Flea Circus. They can pull more than 30 times their own weight, a feat the professor likened to a man towing an elephant. I mean, fleas are fantastic things. The only way is up. I think there's a song like that, isn't there, that the only way is up.
I assumed, well, we all assumed, that everything was paid for up front. A few little alarm bells were going when I saw the place. I thought, this is going to cost him a fortune. It was like the size of a bloody aircraft hangar. You know, I thought he was joking when he said it was 500-seater. And there were cracks in the ceiling and there was water coming in. I just thought, what have you done, you know? We were due on at 11. By 11:15, there was about 10, 15 people there at most. Arnold was totally gobsmacked. And I just suddenly realised that that was it. It's like 15 people, opening night.
If you cut him, does he not bleed? And he bled.
My first two performers held all the way from Moscow, ladies and gentlemen.
They just didn't come. You know, every night playing to an empty audience.
Fleas are really, really tiny.
He was losing a couple of grand every night. He had almost gone past the point of no return.
Strangely, the performances became more intense, to the extent where he was actually raging like a lunatic to an empty room. That's a showman. You know, if you can pull that out of the bag when nobody's watching. What would it be like if everyone was watching?
Really, that was the end of it. And as I said, I left before it finished because there was the trouble with the, well, there was the animal rights thing, and then there was the other trouble, which I'm not going to talk about right now.
The third week in, we had sort of about 4 people in there, and one of them just happened to be from the BBC.
I'm glad I wasn't there. So it was pretty ugly by all accounts.
He's going to succeed. He's ruthless. He's like totally focused. He's got the dream. He can see the dream. He's just like going for it. I've been sort of like very loyal to Arnold, and I think, oh, you know, I'll see it through to the end. You know, whatever the end is. Hopefully, big time.
You don't think this hat's too tall, do you? I mean, you've got to hand it to Arnold. He did say that we were climbing up the ladder and we were going places and it was going to happen. And it was happening for us. We were on primetime television. But he was just a bit of a nightmare to be around, to be frank, you know.
What is your cue for the Wall of Death? You tell me what the cues are.
Wait, but the thing is, like, what?
No,
the trouble is...
He's very well oiled by the time he gets to the studio.
The question, what are your cues?
I'm trying to
Look, we went through this earlier when we were in the studio.
He'd obviously been on the minibar, you know, before breakfast. He just wanted to get straight back on the grog, you know.
You're messing with my career here. I don't want an improvised music show, you know. I want you to actually work out something that actually fits with what I'm doing. But all that happens is you go, oh, it's jazz. It's like, you know, I'm just improvising along with what you're doing. But what happens is it just doesn't sound any good.
I think maybe we should all just, like, chill out a bit.
Yeah, I think so as well.
You know, we should chill out. Chill out. It's always, that's what I ever hear from you. It's just like, let's just chill out. Let's just take it easy. Let's just, you know, everything will be easy if we don't actually make any effort. It'll all be fine. Christ sakes,
So many big stars have like launched their careers from this show. You know, I don't know, Cannonball, people like that. You know, really big names, little and large. And you know, Arnold knew that if it went well, then the sky was the limit. I think he'd gone beyond nervous. I think it was almost like a self-destructive thing going on. It's almost like he thought, I'm going to wreck this.
I know he's got a lot of demons, and they rage night and day.
We got into the green room, and there's a lot of big names in there and stuff.
I'm on this TV show with all these people.
And he's staggering around and swaggering about.
There we've got the Edwardian family.
Oh God, he was going up to this Elvis guy in there and saying, I could do Elvis, I could do Elvis. How come you're on here? He was doing all the, you know, all the lip stuff and they've got loads of, you know, hospitality drinks and stuff like that.
Like you can drink as many drinks as you want.
Our time came to go on and we practically had to carry him on. I could tell something bad was going to happen. He started the act and you couldn't really work out what he was going on about. He was totally incoherent. It must have been the drink, really. He was just totally over the top. The audience just didn't really get it, I don't think. And then it got really bad. He started touching himself. And it's like old grannies and that, and families. You know, he was saying, oh, I'll show you something, I'll show you some magic. You know, tell your family about this when you get home. They decided enough was enough and they pulled the plug. And they were kind of dragging Arnold off and he had his trousers and pants around his ankles. That's when I thought, oh Christ, Arnold, you've really done it this time.
when he left, I was shocked. He was going to go and have a poached egg, I remember. But no salt. Don't know why he told me that.
Godboy hasn't seen him, I haven't seen him. I've phoned around and nobody seems to know where he is.
We realised subsequently that the venue hadn't been paid. None of the wages obviously had to be paid. We were furious. He just did the off, you know. This is his caravan, but bloody hell. Between us, we've all had to do like remortgages and selling cars. I had some savings that I've had to use to pay off the Edinburgh bill, and I'm kind of hoping that one day I might get those back. You know, he's done little disappearing acts before, not for this long, so I'm a little bit concerned. It's a joke, really.
He's a curiosity. And I think maybe he was sick and tired of being a curiosity. It's a big leap from curiosity to serious artist.
I haven't heard of him, he hasn't got in touch with me, he hasn't given me any money, nothing.
It would be nice if he, you know, came round, we could sit down, I could tell him a couple of the other ideas that I've got, you know. I've had a good idea about some seats for people to sit on. He may be gone now, but he'll be back. And we'll all have to sit up and take notice.
I know who he is. I'm in contact. He's okay, and he's coming back. Oh yes, he's coming back.
There'll probably be a film next. I'd want to get paid first, so.
If he wants to break up the whole Flea Circus show or whatever, fine. We want to know, you know, where we stand really, that's the trouble. Because we never really seem to know where we stand.